Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we're rolling. It's Friday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 140 of Gridiron Grinder. And so for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium, cover the news from this past week. Then we're going to continue where we left off last week. We're going to do our NFC pre draft team needs. And then after that, we'll close it off with our question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going pretty good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. So, yeah, like I've been telling you, I've been testing out some new software trying to boost the show up a notch. And, obviously it's a lot harder than you'd think it would be. And so,
Yeah.
some setbacks, but maybe next week we'll have a few new features we can play around with and spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. Depends on
Yeah.
how your tests go this week.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Okay, well, hey man, why don't you do a little name that stadium action for us?
All right. So this part of the show, as you can see, I'm kind of traveling around, going to various stadiums that host NFL games or have hosted NFL games. You guess it, first person to guess it right, we'll give you an extra special shout out. Bookmark it, you can brag to all your friends. You guess it, we might give you a shout out and probably still bookmark that, and you can share that with all your friends. But I didn't see any takers last I checked. You can confirm. I forgot to check today, but yesterday I checked. I didn't see any takers on it.
Nope.
But last week I was in Kansas City, and I chose Kansas City last week because we were talking about AFC teams. That should be a hint. And I thought for a Super Bowl champion, Kansas City had a whole hell of a lot of needs coming into this offseason, and lost. And I mean, yeah, granted, last year we thought they were kind of down and they won the Super Bowl. So who knows?
You
Maybe
just
they
never
have the
know.
players and they actually have the players and we just don't realize it. But yeah, that's why I chose Kansas City last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people looking back feel like they hit the jackpot with last year's draft, and so that was kind of the difference maker where the roster looked like it had some weaknesses that ended up actually being pretty good. And
Hmm.
yeah, now of course, you've got the shuffle of losing guys like every team does every offseason. And yeah, it's the same thing. It's like on paper it looks that way, but yeah, it's like wow, they definitely got it done last year, and who knows, man? Maybe they'll get it done again.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm thinking not based on some comments I've told you about what I'm thinking if a particular trade goes through, and what my thoughts are there. But it
Sure.
doesn't look like that trade's going to go through anytime soon.
Yeah,
So
a lot of slow moving stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
With the draft coming close, you never know. That could be, a way of clearing the log jam, but it's anybody's guess. So,
yeah. So with that, what I'm hearing though is the what the hiccup is the Packers are insisting that a first round pick be involved in the trade, and the Jets are saying, "Fuck no, we're not giving you a first round pick."
yeah, for a guy that might only play 1 year.
Yeah, and like, well, there was I was just reading it, and it's like apparently the latest offer from Green Bay is suspected to be that the Jets get Rodgers and a conditional 2025 pick that the Jets only get if Rodgers retires after one season.
Okay.
And the Packers get a 2023 second round pick and a 2024 first round pick. And basically the Jets have said, no, we're not giving you a first round pick.
Yeah, I like what you were saying before, whether it was last week or the week before, whenever, that just make it conditional. It's like, hey, if you guys get him and you go out and you win the Super Bowl, you get a first round pick. If
Mm-hmm.
you go out and you don't win the Super Bowl, but he plays more than 1 year, you get a first round pick or whatever the conditions are. Uh, you know, I think you did a pretty good job of kind of like breaking it down and making it a lot easier to look at. And if you're the Jets, it seems like, okay, your owner went out and like made some statement about wanting, you know, like a top notch veteran guy. Okay, well, if that's what you want, you got to pony up and make it happen. Like you can't say that, get the guy on the hook, and then, be dicks about the negotiations because you're the ones that already like, tipped your hand saying, oh, yeah, we want this guy and we're going to do this. And, so I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, so it's weird and it's kind of fucked up, but maybe they'll listen to us like Baltimore listened to us after last week talking about needing to go out and get a receiver, and then poof, they signed OBJ. So
Yeah, man. So I didn't put that in my notes for tonight, but he signed, it was what, just a 1 year deal, but it could be up to like 18 million or something.
I forgot to look at
It
at
was
the
it was a
deal.
healthy deal, man. It was
It was
like,
a healthy deal, and as part of the deal, like in his press conference, he said that he was given no assurances that Lamar would be the quarterback,
yep,
which
yep.
is interesting.
Yeah, and it just, the amount of money was a shocker for me because I thought, geez, this is a guy that missed all of last year and they still paid him that big of money. But, um, you know, I think Baltimore, especially if they're going to have a quarterback change, they do need a guy that can step up and be that number one. With Lamar, we talked about it. How much do they really need it? Because Mark Andrews is his number one. But that changes with a more traditional quarterback, and that could be the direction they're going. So,
Yeah. So apparently it was a straight shot 1 year, $15 million guaranteed contract.
okay,
I'm glancing and I'm not seeing any
incentives.
incentives, but I mean there could have been in that particular article just wasn't listing them. Let me
Sure.
see if I can find another one that has it.
I
Uh,
got you, man. I got you.
Oh, apparently before the contract, they were literally about to trade for Cortland Sutton.
Okay.
But so
But we
let
got
me
him.
see.
Or no, sorry. I'm thinking of our cornerback we got from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton's a wide receiver for
Yeah,
Denver.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any. I'm not really seeing any incentives for it. I'm just seeing it's a 1 year, 15 million.
Okay. Well, while you're looking,
Yeah,
let's just officially say we've moved on to the recap of the past week. How about that?
yeah. Okay. So there are 3 million in reachable incentives. So you were right. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah, so
like
the 18,
250,000 for 30 catches, 500,000 for 40 catches, 750,000 for 50 catches, 1 million for 60 catches, or if he leads the team in receptions. Like that's like the escalation, and
yeah.
then it's 200. The same escalation for 250 yards total receiving. Uh, 500 for 500 yards total receiving, 750 for 750 yards, 1 million for 1,000, or if he leads the team. And for touchdowns, it's 250 for 3, 500 for 5, 750 for 7, and 1 million for 9, or if he leads the team in receiving touchdowns. So that's the up to 3 million. That's how he gets the additional 3 million.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Okay. Well,
Oh,
hey,
and a signing bonus of 13.835. Okay, that's what it
it's
is.
some
So the
it's some
signing
dough.
bonus is 13.835 and the base salary is 1.165. And then
And then some
included
incentives.
included avoidable year,
Okay.
which
Well,
reduced the 2023 cap number.
because why not? Because everybody does it.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so yeah, there were incentives. It wasn't, I had to go to like article number 7 on it to find them.
I gotcha. All right. Well, hey, since we're now squarely into the news section, let's just kind of go through some of the things from this past week. And like normal, James, I don't have any of this really in any particular kind of order, but, um, I saw today Buda Baker, the safety for the Arizona Cardinals, he's requesting a trade, wants out. Similar situation down in Tampa Bay. Devin White, their linebacker, has requested a trade. Although I'm hearing with Tampa Bay, they're saying they have no intention of trading him, which I like that they
Mhm.
said that because, you know, whether you're going to hold his feet to the fire and make him live up to that contract, or you just need to be a smart negotiator and say that so that teams come out with a stronger starting offer. I think that that's the way you got to play it as a GM. But a couple of guys requesting trades. We talked before the show. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers wants the trade out of Green Bay, and I do want to come back and talk about this for question of the week about this sort of like proliferation of players demanding trades in recent years. I mean, Lamar Jackson's one of them too. You got four big name guys right now that have requested trades, and it looks like at least three of them, or two. I guess we got to wait and see what's going on in Arizona. But they might get their wish, and so we'll
Mhm.
come back to that.
So, but with Devin White, I actually believe what's his name, Jason Light, when he says that he has no intention to trade him, because like if you actually read his quote, it's it's like, yeah, you're playing this year for us, motherfucker.
Oh yeah,
So
he's
it
just
says
not not
we
not having it, not
yeah
today.
we all have we all have all the respect in the world for Devin. He's done some great things for us, and we look forward to more from him in the future. If he has the type of year we think he's capable of, we can hopefully put this to rest, and everybody's happy.
Okay, yeah.
This isn't
So
something I'm holding against him. I still feel he's a tremendous person. I would never say he's not the type of teammate we want because of this.
gotcha. Well, that was a very politically correct way of saying it publicly.
Yeah.
Because yeah, everything I heard is that basically, Devin White saw like the Roquan Smith contract, and
Hmm.
he's not seeing how Tampa Bay is going to open up the pocketbook and pull something like that off for him. And so, that kind of has been his motivation to get out now. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's also because Tampa Bay has like 70 million in dead cap to Tom Brady over the next
yep,
four
yep.
years.
Well, that's obviously a part of it. I'm sure Devin White can see the writing on the wall, and he's like,
Mhm.
well, hey, if these guys can't pay me, or they can't pay me and be competitive, then get me out of here.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
all right. So in other news, James, Washington, the Commanders, it looks like there is a deal near for Dan Snyder and company to sell the team. They've got
It's more
the
than near.
more than near.
It's
Okay.
agreed upon, needs approval from the league.
Okay. So yeah. All right. So when I read it, I'm glad you said that because when I read it, it said there was nothing in writing yet, but it was expected to be there soon. And so, but the article I read talked about the $6.05 billion valuation, which is huge. That's an NFL record now, which Denver, I think, was what, like four when they sold just,
Yeah,
you
Denver
know?
was four. It was. I just had it. It was 4.65, and I'm going to correct myself because it's not signed, but it's by Snyder.
Okay.
So somebody, it's a non-exclusive, fully financed but not signed deal, meaning another group could still come in and buy the team.
I got you.
But
Okay.
it's anticipated to be approved during the league meetings May 22nd through 24.
Okay. Well, that's our time frame to watch out for then.
Yeah, and it includes FedEx Field and the team's practice facility, but it's for $6.05 billion,
I was just
which
shocked that it's a 50% premium to what Denver got.
mhm,
I mean, it just seems like, and it's complicated. You got to look at what are all the assets involved, but that's just so much higher, man.
yeah, and I was shocked when I saw so that Snyder paid 800 million for it 24 years ago.
Yeah, he made out like a bandit
Mhm.
without any production because he has like a huge losing record in that time span.
Yeah, and apparently the owner, um, or the pr prospective buyer, what's his name, Josh or John Harris, Josh Harris. He owns, or he's partnered in ownership of the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA and the New Jersey Devils in the NHL, and then like a soccer team, I think, in England.
Okay,
But he was runner up to the Walton Group for buying Denver last year in
gotcha.
that bidding war.
Okay. Oh, he's getting now.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along here, James. This is one that you pointed out. Bud Dupree, the former Tennessee Titan and Pittsburgh Steeler linebacker. He signed a deal with the Atlanta Falcons. It's a 1 year contract worth up to $5 million. Pretty good bargain signing, in my opinion, for Atlanta.
hmm
You
Yeah,
know?
I like that deal for Atlanta, and I also like it for Dupree because he struggled in Tennessee. I told you this. He struggled in Tennessee
Yep.
with there was all those expectations and coming off surgery. Like he only played in like it was something like he only started half the games he played in, and he only played in something like 20 games of the like 34 possible games he could have played in Tennessee. And so I mean, it's a good fresh start for him. It's a 1 year prove it deal. It's kind of lower, which we all know what happened. Like the end of his contract in Pittsburgh before he got hurt, he was lighting shit up,
Yeah.
and then he got hurt, but he still did enough to garner that big deal with
Yeah, and then for
Tennessee.
Atlanta, they also made a trade for Jeff Okuda from the Lions this past week. And so, Okuda, you and I are very familiar with him, obviously a former number 3 overall pick. Detroit's only getting a fifth rounder back, but, the guy dealt with a lot of injuries his first couple of years. And even though this past year it looked like he was finally on the right track, it's tough. When
hmm
you're the number 3 overall pick, the expectation's so high, and then he was going to count like 10 million on the books or something this year. It's a lot of money for a guy that's still kind of like buried in the depth chart after you look at the free agent signings that they made. And so, but for Atlanta, giving up a fifth round pick for the guy, I think that was another bargain move for the
hmm
Falcons. And, this is a team that had some issues on defense last year, big time, that they're filling holes, man. I mean, what did they go out? They got Jesse Bates at safety.
hmm
You bring in Bud Dupree. Now you got Okuda, who can be your 2 or 3 cornerback, depending on how you play it. I think Atlanta, they're sneakily improving. I don't know how to say it. So
Yeah, so I really like what Atlanta's doing. Like they got Bates, Caleb McGarry,
oh yeah, they brought in
Caden
Calais
Ellis,
Campbell.
Calais Campbell,
Shit, I forgot about
um,
that. You know,
Dupree, Okuda, which I'm not very. We hated that pick. What was it 4 years ago, 3 years ago when?
we just knew that they set him up to fail,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, we didn't like that pick at 3, but um, that's that's fine. And then so I really like what Atlanta's doing on defense. And the weird thing about it is because Arthur Arthur Smith, he's an offensive minded coach.
Yep.
He was the coordinator offensive coordinator in Tennessee, and had like basically made Tannehill look like a superhero, and got Tannehill a huge contract, and
Yeah.
we all saw what he could do with Derrick Henry. So I like him focusing on the defense in the and free them focusing defense free agency, and then maybe go out and in the draft pick up some key offensive pieces.
Yeah, and I mean, offense really, they're on their way offensively when you look at it because the expectation is that Desmond Ritter is going to get the chance to be the starter this year.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted Drake London last year. He showed a lot of promise as a rookie. You still got Kyle Pitts. They brought in Jonnu Smith,
Mm-hmm.
and then Cordero Patterson, he's like somehow found staying power at running back. I thought that was going to be a kind of like a gimmicky 1 year and done, but he repeated it last year. And so yeah, I think offensively, and then they maintained their offensive line pretty well. I think they're on the right track both ways, but yeah, the defense definitely getting a big boost so far this offseason.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, and I said that about Jeff, and I kind of looking at like all the mock drafts, everybody's mocking them more defensive pieces. So
Okay.
I that's interesting there. Like they have some holes at offense, but it's like I see them like mocking them like cornerbacks or linebackers in the draft, which I don't know if the linebackers have been updated. The draft mock drafts have been updated for signing Dupree, but still, it's like it seems like they're going. Everyone's projecting them to go really heavy defense this year.
Do it to it, man. I like defense. Speaking of defense, James, Gerald McCoy, former defensive tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he has announced his retirement. He played 11 seasons, so I don't know. Did he play last year or
No.
was it okay? Because yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember hearing his name, but 11 seasons, 6 Pro Bowls, former first round pick. He came out the same year as Sue, I believe, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken,
Yeah.
and ended up having 54 and a half sacks on his career, which is like pretty freaking solid for an interior defensive lineman. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the thing with him is like the last 2 seasons that he played. Well, he didn't play. He for so he was wow, it was 2010. Jeez, I didn't realize it was that long ago. But so he he joined the Panthers in 2019, and that was the only season he played. And he played one game in 2020 and ruptured his quadricep, and then he signed with the Raiders in 21 because he had a knee injury in 21, and then he was off the. Now he wasn't in the league or he wasn't signed to anybody last year,
okay,
but he started 139 of 140 of the 140 games he played, 59 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, four recoveries, 24 pass deflections, and 334 tackles.
yeah, solid man, really solid, yeah. Good for him, good for him. Hopefully, it's a happy retirement. All right, and then yeah, the last thing I had, James, I'm hoping you could kind of fill in here because I know you got more information on it than I do, but Dwayne Haskins, sad story. He had that sort of like freak accident death thing. Apparently there's been some new, I don't know, like however you want to say it, like the plot thickens or whatever. Something about he was like kidnapped and drugged before all this happened, and you're saying possibly even blackmailed and just all sorts of wrinkles to the story. And I don't know what's true, what's not true. I know that like the way that it came out, we were all hoping, hey, let's hope it's not like a drug or alcohol thing, and you don't want him to be a bad guy. And then it turned out there was like drugs or alcohol involved, and it was like, oh, that sucks. But now it sounds like maybe it was not. Maybe it's not like a bad guy thing. Maybe it was this dude got put into a situation, and
Mhm.
so what are you seeing with it, man?
So the lawsuit that was filed by his estate and his family, they're alleging negligence in regards to for the driver and for the driver and the company of the dump truck, saying it was overloaded, its brakes didn't work properly, and the driver was speeding and driving carelessly. They based that on the fact that Haskins went across the freeway, and the report says he was mere feet from safety when the dump truck hit him, and they're alleging that the tires were too worn out and the brakes didn't work properly on the dump truck.
Okay.
Um, they're suing the Florida Department of Transportation and the contractor for failure to maintain roadways and lighting so drivers had clear sight paths.
Okay.
They're suing the rental car company for failure to negligence on the side of the rental car company for mechanical air defects, and the car didn't have a full tank of gas like it was supposed to when the Haskins rented it. Failure on the hotel and pubs and resorts or whatever that Haskins went to for failure to maintain safe conditions and keep their premises free of dangerous conditions, including negligence to allow patrons to use drugs and failure to allow negligence to allow patrons to use drugs and to drug others, and battery against 4 individuals for drugging Haskins to blackmail and rob him.
Jeez.
One of the things that for the robbing portion of it, I guess that I guess there's something about like his expensive. It is believed that this is a quote from the attorney. It is believed that Dwayne was targeted and drugged as part of a blackmail and robbery conspiracy. In fact, his highly expensive watch was stolen from him shortly before his death.
Okay. Yeah, and so like there's a lot there. It's like a shotgun blast of new information. And it just goes to show how complicated some things in life can be, I think.
Yeah, and it's just, and they're basically, because the drugging apparently, he had drunk, but he had tested positive for ketamine and norketamine, which yes can be used recreationally, but they're claiming that he did not use them recreationally.
Yeah, there was some foul play, is what they suspect.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm purposely not naming the people that are named in the lawsuit because I don't want to disparage them on something that I don't know.
Sure.
It's been reported that these things happen. I'm just going to say I have no knowledge of it. I'm just reading off of reports and the lawsuit.
Yeah,
I don't want to get my ass sued.
Yeah, we're just reporting what we're seeing out there on the internet, and I appreciate you being cautious, James, because you know as well as I do, Gridiron Grinder ain't make no money. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that would hurt. That would hurt. A lawsuit would not be fun. All right. Well, hey, yeah, sad situation. Hopefully, they find some answers here for the family and the friends and the people that cared about him, and they can get some closure and know exactly what happened here. But that was all I had news-wise, James. Was there anything else that you saw that you wanted to hit?
So the NFL and NFLPA approved. They did some stuff with their helmets. They approved a new helmet designated to reduce QB concussions in response to a Tagovailoa concussion last year. Based on testing, the helmet performs better than any other helmets they've ever seen for head-to-ground impact.
Okay.
And it performed 7% better than the most popular helmet worn by quarterbacks last season. They're not. The other helmets are still available for the quarterbacks. They're not forcing the quarterbacks to switch to this helmet, but this helmet is specific for quarterbacks, and but they also sent a memo to teams based on the results of recent laboratory testing of helmets. They downgraded 7 helmets from their highly recommended list to prohibited.
Okay.
Based on the new testing.
Gotcha.
And
well, I mean, it sounds like that's a good thing. that they're finding newer, better technology, and because of that, they're wanting to phase out the old stuff that is no longer as good as what they're finding.
hmm And they're looking into and trying to spur more position specific helmets designed for that position group to for safety, and hoping that the players will come along with them. Unlike there was AV a number of years ago where he had found out his helmet was
Oh
now
yeah,
prohibited, so he tried to do a
he
shitty
did.
paint job on it when he was with the Raiders.
I remember that. Yeah, that was wild. You would think that a player like him, with the money and everything, could have had a good paint job that would have been like to the naked eye nobody would have known, you know.
You would
But
think. You would think, but then again, he was known not to pay people, so maybe people just knew that, so they wouldn't
that's
do
true.
it.
That's
So
true.
he, so he's like, "Fuck it, I'll do it myself."
Uh,
I'm sorry, he
okay.
was
Well,
alleged, because I don't want him to sue me. He was alleged to not pay.
yeah. He's crazy. He's crazy.
Yeah.
He lost it, unfortunately. Which, by the way, I
No,
got.
he's not. I'm not going to say he's crazy. I'm going to say that he's made some decisions in his career and over the years that I would say were questionable,
Yeah. All right. No, I'm gonna
and
say he's batshit crazy. I'm saying it, James.
he's
So
alleged to be
yeah,
batshit crazy.
yeah. It's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm not I can't like diagnose him as being crazy. It's just my opinion that he is crazy.
hmm
And he wasn't always that way, but wide receivers, it seems like they go crazy at some point when they're good.
hmm
So, okay, is that it for the news, James?
The last little bit, and I think this is a bit of good news. I heard, and I haven't read an article on this, but I heard him on he was on the Pat McAfee show on YouTube, and I think that's a dual show or something. I don't know who all their sponsors, but anyways, and he was talking about how him and the Lions are working on repairing the relationship, and I thought that was a good step, and I'd like
Who?
what I hear from that. So he's like kind of coming back within the fold with the Lions.
Who is that?
Uh, Megatron.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I missed the name. I thought,
I maybe
okay.
forgot to say the name when I started talking about the show, but yeah, Megatron, Calvin Johnson.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I liked him, but it did sour at the end, and I wanted him to keep playing. He didn't want to, not with us, and
hmm
it was just a bummer of a way for it to all kind of fall apart at the end. But he was one heck of a player, man.
hmm
Okay, well, hey, let's move it on over, James, and let's do our NFC pre-draft team needs. And so, just like last week, we started off with the East, then we'll go to the West, then we'll go to the South, then we'll go to the North. And so, looking at the East, we've got the Dallas Cowboys up first. And, I think last time I started it off here and then I kicked it over to you. Maybe I'll take the East as like the lead. You can take the West, and we'll just kind of go back and forth like that. Does that sound
I'm
good?
done. Sounds good.
All right, so for Dallas, and I guess it's just quick to point this out. I'm still running off my notes where I married an article from NFL.com and another article from CBS Sports, and so and I've done my best to update my spreadsheet based on new signings, which since last week there have not been like a ton of big blockbuster kind of things, so it doesn't change too much. But I use those, and then I've kind of got some commentary about maybe how I would change that order, or maybe like add a little bit of narrative to what it means. And so for Dallas, I've got defensive line as number one. Then I've got two offensive line positions, a tight end, a safety, a linebacker, and a running back. Obviously, with running back at the end here, I think it's important to point out that that's really a running back two, because I think the expectation is Tony Pollard is going to be the guy now for this year and hopefully going into the future. But you want to have some depth, obviously, and so getting a running back two is good. Um, you know, Looking at the list, the offensive line, yeah, that's a concern. This is a former top 5 offensive line that really fell apart these last couple of years. I would put some emphasis on that. I would make one of those a high pick. Um, and then tight end, I think that was a very important part of this offense for a long time with Dalton Schultz. You had Blake Jarwin for a little bit in there, and then going before that, you had I just drew a blank on his name, but I think that they should look at getting a tight end, and this is like a very, from what I'm seeing, a very good draft class at tight end, and so, you know, but that's the list I got, James. What are you seeing? What are your thoughts?
So I would 100% disagree with them needing a running back.
Okay.
They have uh,
Well,
Malik,
that's right. They did bring
they
in
have Malik
Ronald
Davis, and
Jones.
they brought in Ronald Jones, and I thought those were the two key pieces. A lot of the lists I saw them having needing a wide receiver because they're not like counting like the signing of Brandon
Okay.
Cooks. I would agree with your list, except for I would switch offensive line with defensive line.
Okay.
I'd say offensive line might be the top priority, then defensive line, then tight end.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, so we're pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, up next then we've got the New York Giants, and so my list is wide receiver, once again, 2 offensive linemen, cornerback, safety, linebacker, and edge. And so for this one, I didn't put a whole lot of commentary in there. I know wide receiver, they've taken some shots with Paris Campbell and Jamison Crowder. They really need like a number 1 guy. And some of the articles I've been reading is that they're looking for a guy that's like that home run threat. They're not necessarily looking for a polished number 1 because it just seems like a lot of that offense, um, they're sort of like doing things on the fly with Daniel Jones. A lot of times the plays sort of just break down, and that's the way the offense goes. But still, I think that that's a big need. So I kind of agree with that. And I'm also big on the offensive line. I think they got a lot of usage out of Saquon last year, and I was surprised because we had that offensive line rated really low. I would beef it up. I would, just my opinion. And then really anything defense. I think their defensive line maybe has some pieces, but anything other than that they could use help with. What do you think, man?
So I had their top priority as cornerback.
Okay.
I think
You don't like Amani Owarie? Yeah.
I think they need some pieces there. Then wide receiver. I agree with you. They need a true number 1 wide receiver. Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, whoever the fuck else they have
Yeah.
isn't cutting it. Then they could use beefing up the offensive line. They do have a couple. I mean, I agree with it. I think their top priority is cornerback
Okay.
because they have Aziz Ojulari. Oh no, that's linebacker. Sorry, Adoree Jackson and Bobby McCain as listed as their
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
and Cordell Flott. Sorry,
Yeah.
Adoree Jackson and Cordell Flott, whoever the fuck that is.
No, I like I like your assessment of that because yeah, when you look at it last year, they made it work offensively with a hodgepodge of wide receivers, and they're bringing in Darren Waller at tight end, which is going to help the passing game. Yeah, I think the cornerback position that could be a bigger need for sure. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and if you and just to go into it, like they allowed 3,600 yards. They allowed 6.9 yards per pass attempt, 214 yards passing per game last year, and 21 passing touchdowns. They only had 6 interceptions all of last year.
Okay.
I think that's their biggest need there. Offensively, like they kind of made it do, but with Daniel Jones, I don't know.
Well, and they
I'm
did
not
lose
sure.
3 guys in the safety position, and so the
Yeah,
secondary in general is going to be weaker.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I would go if I was them. Is I would address the secondary needs first.
Okay, I like that. So next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, James, and the list I've got has safety, defensive line, running back, wide receiver, offensive guard, linebacker, and edge. The glaring things for me are the wide receiver. I don't see how that could be a need at all. You got A.J. Brown as your one, Devonta Smith as your two. Anything else from there is just like gravy. Running back, I think they should deprioritize that. I know they lost Miles Sanders, but he kind of always was like hot or not and never really lived up to the expectations. They brought in Rashad Penny. He's got a lot of injury history stuff going on. But Philly historically, and I'm going back before the Sirianni era, they've been really good at using that committee approach. And they still got like, Boston Scott and some guys there where I just think that running back is not the number three priority for me. I think linebacker I would boost way up there because they did lose T.J. Edwards and Kaiser White, both guys very productive for them. Um, and so that's kind of like the way that I would probably shuffle it, man. What are you thinking?
So I had them. Actually, I didn't have them needing a guard. I
Okay,
had them needing a tackle. Oh no,
sure.
never mind, never mind. I read it wrong. I had them corner, edge, D line. This is in no particular order. Running back, safety, offensive tackle, interior offensive line. And I think that was because they did re-sign Jason Kelsey, so they got another year there. So yeah, it would be guard. So I just put interior offensive line. I kind of lumped guards, centers together. I did tackles
Yeah, yeah.
out specifically. But anyways, so I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Running back is kind of like not a high priority. Um,
Yeah, plus Hertz is mobile,
yeah,
so
I
okay.
would I would say their top priority would be on the defensive line. I mean, they lost they lost uh, Javon Hargrave.
Oh yeah.
They lost their edge with Kazir White. They lost that's it on defensive line. But then they also lost their safety Marcus Epps
And Chauncey Gardner Johnson.
and Chauncey Gardner Johnson. So
Yeah.
I do defensive line or edge, one of the two, cornerback, and then interior offensive line, then tackle, then running back.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Next up, we got the Washington Commanders, and the list I've got is cornerback, two offensive linemen, tight end, quarterback, linebacker, and safety. Um, you know, when I first looked at it, I thought I would have probably made quarterback higher, but I think they brought in Brissett. They want to give Sam Howell the chance. And so it's like, okay, if that's what you're going to do, that's fine. If it doesn't work out, quarterback probably becomes your top need next year. But they've kind of like stacked the deck where this is going to be their strategy. And so, that's fine. Aside from that, I think it's a similar kind of thing on the offensive line. They, going back to losing Trent Williams, they've had some issues on this offensive line. I would beef that up. You know how I am. I know you're the same way. Start with the trenches, work your way out, get that covered, and then yeah, you can go cornerback, tight end, whatever you want to do from there, really.
Hmm. So with the Commanders, like, and this is dependent on if Hendon Hooker falls to them, they're drafting what, like 16th? If Hendon Hooker's available at 16, I would snatch him up if I'm Washington, and I would then turn and prioritize the quarterback position because I think Hendon Hooker is going to be a steal at 16.
Yeah, he could be, man. He's going to have an off year coming back from injury, but
Yeah,
um,
which is
yeah,
which
it,
worst case scenario, you pick Hendon Hooker at 16. Sam Howell lights it up this year. You could turn around and
flip
trade
Hooker.
and flip Hooker.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, and the benefit is that, if you get him somewhere in the first round, you're
mhm.
going to have that fifth year option, which helps ease the pain of him missing a year and then basically having a delayed rookie year. And so it's like, okay, you could argue that those first 2 years are maybe a little bit of a waste, but
Mhm.
you're still going to have 3 solid years with him on a rookie contract, where if it works out, it could be really good.
Yeah. So, and there, I did Washington two ways.
Sure.
I did one of these top five quarterbacks falling to 16. Then I would go quarterback, tight end, offensive line as their three priorities. If one of these guys doesn't fall, I would have gone offensive line, linebacker, cornerback, safety.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, you got it a little bit variable. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all dependent on who falls to 16. If it's Hendon Hooker, I would snatch him up. If it's Richardson, I might snatch him up. If it's Levis, I might let him go.
Okay. You don't like the Stafford comp for Levis?
I like Levis. I really do like Levis. I don't think I think it's Levis is just Sam Howell. So you might as well see what you have with Sam Howell if
Okay.
Levis falls to 16.
I got you.
Richardson and Hendon
Hooker.
Hooker have such a high ceiling, and they're more of when Ron Rivera had success and took Carolina to the Super Bowl. That was under with Cam Newton, who was
Yeah,
more of a
maybe he
mobile
gets his
style
Cam
quarterback.
Newton.
Right. And Richardson and Hendon Hooker can play that semi-mobile quarterback role for them.
Yep.
I don't think Levis is as mobile.
No.
Levis is more of a statue. And I don't think that fits into Ron Rivera's style. And that's why I would let him go. Not because it's Will Levis, it's because he doesn't fit into the style.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, and I did hear this past week, it was the first time I've heard this, is that some evaluators are now saying that they think Levis actually has the best skill set long term out of this quarterback class. And a lot of that is based on his freaking just elite arm strength. And, they're saying he's already like way ahead of Richardson with accuracy. And so that bodes well for him long term. But it's anybody's guess. Nobody's got the crystal ball.
Right, but also talking about Richardson, Richardson apparently there's a test they do, a cognitive or something test at the combine that Richardson scored off the charts on. That
Not the
basically
Wonderlist, something else.
no, it's like the S2 test
Okay.
or something like that, where it tells you Wonderlist is intelligence, Wonderlust or whatever the hell it's called. The S2 test basically determines
Yeah, not the Wonderlick.
Wonderlic. That's it. That it was like the S2 test or something like that, which helps teams identify basically field awareness.
Okay.
So
Well,
I thought that
yeah,
was interesting.
that is interesting, and I will say this: the interviews I've seen from Richardson, he
Hmm.
looks really smart,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of people, it's like one of these kinds of things where sometimes people judge the book by the cover, where they see up freak athlete, strong arm, runs fast, all these things, but accuracy's low, and I think a lot of people just assume maybe his field smarts and things like that aren't there, but it's like I think there's a lot more to the story because he does seem highly intellectual when you watch him talk in these interviews.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, that takes us over to the West, man. Why don't you kick it off with the Cardinals here, James?
Well, for the Cardinals, let's see, what do they need? And Buda Baker, yeah, Buda Baker kind of throws.
Yeah, that changes things
Not
potentially.
really. It actually looking at it, it didn't. I changed it or so I had them needing. What position don't they need? They don't need They don't really need linebackers. They don't really need safeties. They don't really need tight ends. They don't really need kickers. They don't really need a punter. They don't need a long snapper. That's about it. Okay, so for Arizona, where they're drafting, I would draft a QB.
Yeah, you did. I think you mentioned this to me before, but yeah, go ahead because this is interesting.
I don't think Kyler Murray is the answer there.
Okay.
I think Kyler Murray, in my opinion, from what I read about Kyler Murray, he's a child. He doesn't put the work in. I think you can get Richardson, Stroud, Bryce Young, one of those three guys, obviously, because they're drafting number 3,
Yep.
at number 3. Any one of those has the same or better skill set than Kyler Murray. But what I'm seeing from them and what I'm reading about them is they put the work in off the field.
Okay.
You do that, yeah, Kyler Murray just signed a ridiculous fucking contract. And yeah, it's going to hurt. But you should never have signed him to the extension in the first place.
Yeah.
When you had suspicions that he wasn't putting the work in off the field, and you had to put a 4-hour homework clause into his contract, which you then rescinded because
Yeah.
of public backlash, you should,
Which is really low, by the way. 4 hours, that's
right,
it. Come on.
right. But at that point, you should never, ever have given him a contract.
Yeah.
Now, that's not what they're going to do. That's how I would prioritize it for them. Taking that out of the equation, I would say their priority is going to be edge, defensive line. You
Okay.
gotta replace
Zach Allen and J.J. Watt.
exactly. I was going to get the Watt confused. It's TJ or JJ. JJ Watt. You got to replace Zach
Oh yeah,
Allen.
and Marcus Golden's out. Yep.
Yeah. After that, you need a quarterback. A cornerback.
Yep. Byron Murphy's gone. Yep.
I would say interior offensive line is a tangential need because of the fact that this is a throwaway season anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe you find a guy late that you can put a developmental year into and develop him into the quarterback. Plus, anyways, with Kyler as your quarterback and him being mobile, he can escape the pocket well. But that's how I would prioritize it. I would put quarterback first, but I don't think they're going to. So it's going to be edge, D-line, corner, interior offensive line. And also interior offensive line depends on what happens with Nuke. If they trade Hopkins, then I would move wide receiver up to between defensive line and corner.
Okay.
Back.
Yeah, that is a wild card for them. That's for sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that assessment. I think that this is one of the situations where you could deprioritize the offensive line for this year just because it's the throwaway year. When I was looking at it, I look at, they brought in, what's his face from Philadelphia, the defensive coordinator, Gannon.
No, that's not Gannon. Gannon was the offense.
Oh, Gannon was the offense.
No, both of them left. Both defensive and offensive left. It might have been Gannon, and the other one was.
Let me just look it up real quick because I want to make sure I got this right. Yeah, Jonathan Gannon.
Okay, so I got them confused because it's the offensive coordinator is the one that won Assistant of the Year.
Yeah,
and it was like it started with an S.
Steichen,
yeah.
Yeah. So, with them having a defensive head coach now, and they've lost a lot of talent on defense, I felt like the list should prioritize the defensive side of the ball, and that gives them a year for him to lay the groundwork with the part of the field that he is better at himself, coaching the defense. And then, I think, next year they got to figure out what they're doing with Kyler. Can they trade him and make a move? I did hear somewhere somebody saying, hey, this is a throwaway year, like build your foundation and then trade Kyler and draft a rookie next year and restart that clock with your cap and everything like that. and it really ends up being like the year after that, then that you would expect them to start to be competitive. And so, fans don't ever want to hear that, but sometimes that's the reality, man. So, but yeah, no, I like the way you broke it down for Arizona.
All right. Next up, if I'm going alphabetically, we have the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, they had the mass exodus, and still to date, I have no 68 or higher signings in free agency, only departures.
All right. So the list I have, and I don't know where to prioritize. I think they need interior offensive line number one, offensive tackle number two, number three, running back.
Okay.
Then after that, I would go defense, edge, corner, safety, defensive line. I think that's how I would prioritize it with them. The reason why I'm saying offensive line is because of the fact that they never, first of all, offensive tackle, they never traded. It's not Whitworth, but was it Whitworth?
Well,
They
Whitworth,
never replaced
he retired after the
after
Super
the
Bowl.
Super Bowl, but they never replaced him.
No, no, they had I forget, they had a young guy step
Yeah,
up,
and he
but
did shit.
yeah,
And the offensive line last year got Stafford hurt.
it was horrible.
And so that was part of their big downfall was Stafford getting hurt. So you need to protect Stafford. Stafford's not mobile, so you need the offensive line that can protect him enough for him to not take the hits. I say running back because they have what's his face?
Cam Akers.
They have Cam Akers, but I'm not 100% sold on him.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I would make offensive line the top priority
Mm-hmm.
because, you got to keep Stafford healthy. I wouldn't really worry as much about running back because, um, you know, all they do is throw the ball with Stafford.
Right. But I think they need the running back to have the
To
threat
balance him out.
to
Yeah,
balance him out
I
to
know.
to
I
slow
I
down
I agree with you, but I don't think
slow
they're going to
down
do that.
slow down the defensive rush slightly to give Stafford that extra layer of protection. And that's why I put running back at number three.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, and then for them, this is an interesting one because my list has cornerback at number two. But with the Rams, when you look at them, I know they made that trade for Jalen Ramsey, but when you look at their draft history, they very rarely draft cornerbacks high, and they always seem to find success in their secondary. And so, even though it might be a high priority to fill, I'm not sure that they need to. Okay, we're back. Little technical difficulty there, but looks like we're okay right now.
Do we know where it cut off?
It must have just been right before I stopped you.
Okay. So I started to say I don't think they have a second round pick, but they do have one second round pick. But I mean it's a high second round pick, so you might be right on that for corner back. But I really put offense first. I would take cornerback and put that as at like their fifth need.
Yeah, I would have offensive lineman number one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers, who also don't have a first round pick this year. I forget why, but there was a trade of some sort there.
Was that related to the McCaffrey trade?
Yeah, probably. It's probably the McCaffrey trade. I'm just forgetting about it. Like I know there's a reason.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the Trey Lance thing, they gave up a lot for that. Did that go into this year?
I don't know. Did I close that window? I must have. Fucker. So let me try to reopen that window because that will.
Sure.
But I accidentally closed it. So give me a second. can you still hear me? Because my computer's saying that people might not be able to hear me.
I can hear you, bud.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure because it says people are having trouble hearing you. And I was like, what? How the fuck would? Let me see. San Francisco. From San Fran. It's the Saints that have their first round pick via Miami and Denver. What? Okay, San Francisco to Miami. San Francisco traded the first round selection, its first round selection, a 2021 first round selection, a 2022 first and third round selection, in exchange for one of Miami's 2021 first round selections. So that was Trey Lance.
Okay.
So apparently they didn't trade a first round pick for McCaffrey.
Yeah, after I said it, I was starting to think that. I was second guessing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. But with San Francisco, I find it weird that they did such a trade for McCaffrey's with, especially with what's his face,
Well,
Shanahan.
Shanahan's offense has historically not needed that kind of juice at running back. They make it work with no-name guys.
Yeah. So, anyways, I see their needs, especially after losing McGlinchey.
Yep.
I see their number one need at offensive tackle was Purdy or Trey Lance as their starting quarterback is going to need that protection. Then I would go to corner back, safety, interior offensive line, and edge. A lot of lists I saw them claiming they needed a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a wide receiver 3,
Yeah,
like I can't put it that high up there. You still got
exactly.
Ayuk and Debo Samuel, and
Yeah,
then you still got Kittle at tight end. So yeah, I mean, wide receivers got to be low on that list.
right. But like the list I had it as their third or fourth
Yeah,
need.
yeah, no, I agree. I'm just saying I wouldn't have it there. Is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Yeah,
So, but that's how I would rate it for them. You need to replace the tackle McGlinchey. You kind of need. I might move interior offensive line up a little bit, um, because again you have Purdy or Trey Lance. Trey Lance can't throw the ball, so I mean you need all the help you can, all the protection you can, so he can just get the courage to throw it 5 yards. Um, and then they lost a lot of their edge players. Like they still have the Bosa,
yeah.
but they lost at Bukum. They lost
Jordan
Omen,
Willis, Amenahue.
yeah,
Yep.
Amenahu. They did sign Cleveland Farrell, but I don't think that moves the needle. Their signings don't really move the needle. Like the only one maybe is Isaiah Oliver might move it a little bit.
It helps, but yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I am with San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, I've gone back and forth on the offensive line part of it because that's another part of like the Shanahan sort of deal is that they just kind of make no-name offensive linemen good too. And but I do wonder, because Purdy and everybody else got hurt, maybe you change that this year, kind of like they went out and they got McCaffrey last year. They changed the running back theme, and so
Mhm.
if it was me, I would do it. I like having that safety on the offensive line. But yeah, then beyond that, I think going cornerback would be important for them. That's something that it was better last year, but they lost Mosley and Verrett, and historically, it's been really shoddy for them in recent years. And so I would try to boost that. The edge, you could use another guy in there, but you do have a lot of solid guys with Bosa and company already. And so, yeah, I like the way you broke it down, man.
And then we move to Seattle. And with Seattle, all the lists I have and when I was doing my research, you're saying, well, you need this guy on offense, you need this offensive player. I think 100% their offense just roll with what they have.
Yeah, maybe get another lineman just to,
Maybe get a lineman for depth,
yeah.
but that's later in. I have them needing edge, defensive line, cornerback, and linebacker, and those should be
Okay.
their top four priorities. Because I think when they tailed off last year, it wasn't because Geno Smith tailed off. Geno Smith had the highest, I believe he had the highest completion percentage last year amongst quarterbacks, and he was up there with touchdown to interception ratio, and he was up there with yards. He was like sixth or eighth with yards, something like that. So I think they just roll back that offense. Yeah, you could. Well, they might need a backup backup running back, but that's
Yeah.
not going to be a priority.
Yeah.
They have Walker. That's all they need. Their defense failed them last year, and that's why they tailed off, barely made the playoffs, lost in the first round. Is 100% on their defense. They need to beef that up. The offense did fine. So that's where I would go. And then after cornerback, I might throw in, or after linebacker, I might throw in like an interior offensive lineman
Yeah.
or a tight end or something. But defense is 100% should be their top priority.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, the list that I had, it actually had wide receiver at 2, which blew my mind because
Hmm.
you've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett still. I thought if anything, maybe you would look at a tight end, but they got Noah Fant as part of that trade with Denver, and so, um, you know, yeah, I think offensively they're mostly set. I like adding one more guy to the offensive line just to give them some stability because I do feel like if they have a starter go down, they don't have a lot of depth there. But I'd go defensive line is my priority. I do like what they did at linebacker, bringing in Bobby Wagner, bringing him back, and then also bringing in Devin Bush. I think that helps. They could use another linebacker, but I think on defense, yeah, like you're saying, it's either cornerback or I'd probably go like defensive line or edge, something like
Hmm.
that. And then strangely, my list also had safety, which I thought, are you kidding me? You've got three really good safeties now since they brought in Julian Love. You got Diggs and you got Jamal Adams, and so it's like I wouldn't have safety on the list at all. But I know Adams has been sort of a disappointment for all that money and the trade and everything. But he's still there, and there's hope for this year. So
Yeah, and I can see that argument.
okay, let's move it on over to the NFC South, James. And so first up, we got the Atlanta Falcons. My list here has edge, cornerback, wide receiver, quarterback, linebacker, safety, defensive line, and offensive guard. I think with the Okuda trade, they also did bring in Mike Hughes, formerly of the Lions, also. You could probably drop cornerback. That's one that I haven't adjusted for yet, but I would just knock that down a little bit. Um, they brought in Calais Campbell. He's going to help on that defensive line. They got Bud Dupree. He's going to help. Between the two of those guys, you can kind of say, depending on how you split it, maybe you got the edge boosted a little bit, but it's really kind of like a 1-year wonder for both of these guys. Like you
Hmm.
still need to get a guy on that edge long term, and Atlanta has not had a solid edge guy in as long as I can remember. And so I would have that be the top. From there, you know, if you think Ritter's the guy, you don't have to worry about quarterback. But I'd like to get him another weapon. You got Drake London, we talked about it, Jonnu Smith, and Kyle Pitts. I would still like to see him have maybe another wide receiver in the mix because you want to set him up for success as best as possible. Uh, and then really, it's plugging in on defense for long term. They found some guys, but where are you going to need for the future? Because a lot of these guys they're sort of just like free agent mercenary types for right now.
I can't argue with anything you said.
Okay. Well, then moving on. Moving
Yeah,
on.
I can't argue with anything you just said there. Like I, I might maybe if I wanted to split hairs, might drop edge linebacker a little bit,
Because of
but
Dupree.
because of Dupree, and obviously maybe say if you think Ritter's the guy, maybe defensive line, offensive tackle might go to number one.
Sure.
But I I mean I like the way you laid it out, and it makes complete sense. So yeah, I mean you can argue it anyway, either way.
Okay. All right. Well, next up, we got the Carolina Panthers, the holders of the number one pick in the draft, James.
For
And
now.
so, for now, yes. And so their priorities are quarterback, edge, wide receiver, cornerback, tight end, offensive guard, and defensive line. Um, I'd have to pull up lineups, but I'm not I'm not sure that edge is like that high of a priority for them because I think that their defense was pretty good and they didn't really lose like any powerhouse from the defensive line or that edge position. So I'd probably lower that a little bit. I think I would boost wide receiver with them saying goodbye to DJ Moore. I know that they brought in Thielen, but I think he's off to greener pastures sooner than later. Um, and especially if you're going to be drafting a quarterback, you want to have weapons for him. And I like the Hayden Hurst thing. I think that was good. Um, yeah, so I'd probably switch it up. I'd go quarterback, maybe wide receiver, and then I'd start looking at the defense. And so, and I think the offensive line, I don't know, like that's another one. I'd want to look at the ratings, but um, I thought their offensive line was okay last year. And in fact, I'm going to pull up lineups while we're talking. But yeah, what's your take on Carolina, man?
Okay, so obviously quarterback is the number one priority.
Yeah.
I had quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, edge, guard, tight end.
Okay.
Um, I wanted to verify it, so I pulled their I think edge is still because they run a 3-4.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I think, and yeah, as I was just looking, I think the guard thing I would boost up higher on the list.
Yeah. So they run a 3-4. So I was looking at their first. I was looked at their line. I was like, oh wait, it's a 3-4. So it's going to be their linebackers. And yeah, they have Gross Matos as the strong side linebacker, and their weak side linebacker is currently Brian Burns.
Yeah. Burns is good, man.
He's good, but I think how we're classifying edge, you're also looking at the ends.
Sure.
And their ends are Deshaun Williams and Shy Tuttle. I like Tuttle. I'm not sold
Yeah. They could beef that up.
on Williams. I kind of like Tuttle, but Williams, he's not very impressive to me in what he did. Last year, he had 37 total tackles, 21 solo, 4.5 sacks. Like they could beef that up a little bit. Shy Tuttle, if I remember correctly, had was better last year. Let me verify this.
Okay.
But I mean, they're both in their fourth season. He had 49 total tackles and two sacks. So he's not much better. So they could beef the defensive ends up, which would be classified in the edge. So yeah, I would go that way.
Sweet. Sweet, sweet Hanks. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints. And so my list has defensive line, tight end, offensive line, wide receiver, linebacker, and cornerback. Um, is defensive line that big of a priority? I mean, I guess Marcus Davenport. I mean, that's kind of an edge guy. Davenport's gone. David Onyemata's gone. Yeah, it's probably high up there. Tight end's tough because they still got Taysom Hill, and I mean, he does play that tight end spot for him. They brought in Derek Carr. The offensive line is going through a transition. I don't know. Do they need wide receiver help? I'm not really sure what to think about New Orleans, man, because they do still have so much talent. They just didn't play that great last year. I'm not sure how to prioritize it.
So, so for New Orleans, the initial read on the list I had, and this was the order it had it, and then I changed it. It had defensive line, edge, wide receiver, running back, tight end, QB, interior offensive line. Obviously, QB, running back. This was an old list, so those dropped off because of Carr and
Jamal
the back
Williams.
Jamal Williams. Defensive line. So I think defensive line and edge should be top priorities because they have currently their defensive line. Their starting defensive line is Cam Jordan, Nathan Shepard, Kalen Sanders, and Carl Granderson.
Yep.
So I think that should be defensive line, then edge, because I don't think well, no, not edge. I would take edge up because they did they have, I mean, I think this guy drafted last year. No, wow, who's that? Yeah, he didn't do shit. But wow, he's in his 4th season already?
Who are you looking at?
Granderson. Yeah, I would say edge. He kind of didn't do really shit. Like, I mean, 4 seasons.
I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Obviously they don't need to replace Cam Jordan, but they need somebody on the opposite side. So opposite side there. Wide receiver. There's no way in hell they need a wide receiver. Currently they're top 3. Chris Olave, and they re-signed Thomas.
Yep.
And assuming he's playing, and Rashid Shaheed, who I think had a decent year last year.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. I think tight end is important because their current Taysom Hill plays tight end, but he's not a productive tight end. So Rashid Shaheed had 28 receptions on 34 targets for 488 yards. So I think that's fairly good for number 3, in my opinion. Juwan Johnson is their current number 1 tight end.
Okay.
And he didn't do shit last year. He had a whop. Oh, he's better than I thought. Huh. No, I don't think they need a tight end.
Okay. So yeah, drop that down on the priority list.
Yeah.
So yeah, defensive line is then the top spot for sure.
Defensive line, edge, and then interior offensive line.
Okay. All right. So last up for the South, James, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and my list has offensive line, safety, defensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, and tight end. I would argue that wide receiver is not a priority at all right now with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I know they lost Julio Jones, Brashad Perriman, Scotty Miller, but when you have your number 1 and your number 2 lined up, I'm not worried about the rest of it from there. I might. What was I just looking at with them at tight end? Sorry, I just wanted to look at that because that is one where, tight end is the last one on my list, and I would like to see them upgrade tight end. They've got no one at tight end, and so.
How do I remember them having a tight end?
So you go a few years back, they had Gronk and they had.
Yeah,
Cameron
Cade,
Brate. They brought in Kyle Rudolph for last year, but you know, Brate and Rudolph are now gone, and I
mhm.
don't I don't know a name of who they have at tight end. So I would
Cade Otton.
oh yeah, well he did have a little chemistry with Brady.
Yeah, he had 42 receptions on 65 yards, on 65 targets, only 391 yards though.
Yeah, I would still put tight end on the list.
Yeah, I would put tight end on the list. Yeah.
I think offensive line though, I agree that that's the priority. Their
Hmm.
offensive line was a disaster, and it was a disaster. And they also lost Donovan Smith and Shaq Mason, so it's even more of a disaster. I'm fine with that being the top priority. After that, like looking at the defense, safety, defensive line, linebacker. Um, yeah, I think you could make the case for some of those, but I'd also like to see these guys get a running back, and that's not on my list. And so I'm
Hmm.
not sure where I put that in the priority. I'd put that higher than wide receiver for sure, but maybe some of these defensive positions like linebacker, depending on what happens with Devin White, that could be a higher priority. Um, Safety, I'm not, I mean, they lost three guys, I guess, so safety is kind of a little bit of an issue now. Um, yeah, I don't know. I would sneak running back in there somewhere. I'd probably be like number 3 or number 4 on my list.
Okay. My list is complete is has
Totally different.
a lot of differences than your list on this one.
Sure.
So I had offensive tackle, corner back, edge, quarterback, running back, safety for depth, then interior offensive lineman for depth.
Yeah, shit. Why does my list not have quarterback? I know they got
Because
Baker.
they're assuming Baker is the guy. I might, I would agree with you. I might move tight end up on the list because like I didn't have tight end because like when I go through it, it's like I assume they have a tight
Yeah.
end because like, but so I might move tight end up, but I think, I think the tight end is of the needs. It's probably if I put tight end, I would put tight end after interior offensive line depth because they have
No,
three
yeah,
solid receivers.
yeah, I would go for sure at least 2 on the offensive line, and
Yeah.
then you can go from there. In fact, I'm making a note of that. Oh, yeah, and at running back, they got Rashad White last year, so maybe, with bringing in Edmonds and him, maybe they don't need a running back. I guess you would want to see how those guys play out.
Hmm.
All right, well, I'm good there on the south, man, if you want to take us over to the north.
I wanted to, yeah, I just wanted to look at who else I had at running back. But okay, the Bears. The Bears. What don't the Bears need? I don't think they need a running back.
They don't need a tight end. I don't know
They don't
why it
need a
was on
tight
my
end.
list.
They don't need. I don't think they need a quarterback. I don't think they need a safety. I don't think they need linebacker. Um, so for the Bears, I had, and this is flippable for me if you make the right argument. I put them this way because it was alphabetical because I could not determine which one they needed more.
Sure.
Defensive line, line,
Okay.
offensive tackle to be specific. Edge, interior offensive line, wide receiver. I know they got what's his face, DJ Moore. They need another wide receiver, and it's more weapons type of thing. Cornerback,
Okay.
and I think that's the order I would do. So defensive line, offensive tackle, like it's basically when I put defensive line, I mean defensive tackle. I don't mean defensive end. I put defensive ends out and edge and kind of lump that
Sure.
in with outside linebackers. Um, I don't know. Like I really struggled figuring out which one they needed more.
Oh man, I'd go offensive line because they're going to be an offensive based team now with Fields, you know, and
Right,
so
but
I would say put him in a position to be successful, and that's going to give you your best shot of winning games, and then work on the defense. But I would have offensive line one and defensive line two because they got to build from the trenches just like everybody else, and I think they're weak in both trenches, and so whichever way you're going to do it, those are the top two in my book.
right. So, but for their offensive tackles, and this is why I struggled with it. So their right offensive tackle, I'm sorry, their left offensive tackle, Braxton Jones,
Yeah,
was drafted in 2022. Their right offensive tackle, Tevin Jenkins, was drafted
yeah,
in 2021.
yeah.
When then you look at the defensive tackles, and their current starting defensive tackles are Andrew Billings and Justin Jones,
I got you.
who Billings was drafted in 16, and total in his like 7-year career, 6-year career, whatever the fuck it is, he has total 120 tackles.
Okay.
And Justin Jones, who was drafted in 2018, is kind of up there. He has 169, but both of them combined last year had 4 sacks.
Yeah,
So
I hear you.
that's why I struggled with it because I I think you have pieces. So if you're drafting an offensive tackle, you're giving up on these guys that are still on their first year contract
Yeah, well, all right. So I
or their
guess,
rookie contract.
yeah, and I guess I would have to look into it deeper because I know they brought in Nate Davis as a guard in free agency, and so I'd be looking at their pieces trying to figure out, do you need a tackle or do you need another guard or do you need a center? What is it? Maybe one of those tackles is going to be better suited at guard and you bump him in and then you go tackle. I'm not sure. Like I'd have to dig into it deeper, but I think they need at least one or two guys on that offensive line still. I think you've got guys developing, but I still think it's fairly bare.
Right, but and I understand that argument, but then you go to their guards,
Yeah.
and so they have right guard is Nate Davis,
Yep.
left guard is Cody Whitehair, and their center is Lucas Patrick.
Hmm.
So Lucas Patrick is in his 6th season, and I thought he did generally good. Cody Whitehair is also in his 6th season, and Nate Davis is going into his 4th season. So I
All
understand what
right.
you're
So you
saying.
yeah. So you're thinking defensive line first.
Yeah, I just I understand what you're saying, but that's why I struggled with it. It's like, okay, so you have these pieces, but are these pieces the right pieces? And I
Yeah.
don't know about that. And I wasn't able to dive enough
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. So yeah, you're not sure if it's time to abort on some of those guys,
Yeah,
and you know that the defensive line, there's nobody to even really abort. They just need help.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
I got you. Yeah, and I'm good with all the rest of it. I probably would have knocked down wide receiver just because with DJ Moore at one, then you got Darnell Mooney at two, who I really like as a number two, and then you do have the two tight ends with Tanyan and Komet, and so
Hmm.
I'm not sure wide receiver. When you're looking at a three, who's really going to be like a four or five when you add in the tight ends to the mix. I would just drop that lower on the list, in my opinion.
I can give you that.
All right, buddy. Our favorite Detroit Lions.
All right, so I'm going to talk about their needs. This is not in any sort of prioritization.
Sure.
Um, okay, so the Lions need, especially with trading he was his third or fourth. So I take that off the list. They need defensive line, edge, linebacker, safety, tight end. And I'm debating whether to leave corner back on the list
I
and whether
would.
to leave.
I would because Cam Sutton's the only guy that's not on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, that's where my debate is. And I'm debating whether or not to leave Couture back on the list.
Yeah, I think quarterback is debatable. For me, it's lower on the list. And so, like, my NFL.com CBS Sports thing has quarterback at 5. And I'm okay with that. Like, I think that if you have a guy like Hendon Hooker fall to you at a great spot, and you can't pass on him, go for it. Because then you're talking about developing a guy and you still have time to ride out Goff's contract. And so I'm good with that kind of a strategy, but I would not be anxious in like trade the farm for a quarterback this year. I don't think you need to.
So, and we go through that need list, and we're gonna spend some time on this.
Sure.
Every fucking mock draft I saw this week has them picking Bijan Robinson at number 6.
Yeah. So
Every fucking one of them.
I've seen some of that in Kuiper's mock draft. It had him at 18, and I liked it at 18. I'm not sure I like it at 6. Um,
Exactly. 18's fine,
yeah,
assuming certain players aren't there.
yeah. No,
18
yeah,
is
yeah. I
fine,
I
but
agree. Yeah.
number 6, fuck no.
No, and a lot of the reason why people are doing it is because they're saying Swift is just always hurt, and it's questionable about is he injured or just hurting and doesn't want to play. You know, um, Staley got into him last year about it, telling him, "Hey man, everybody's hurting. You got to play. Unless you're injured, you got to play." And we thought that was going to boost Swift this past year. Maybe it helped him a little bit, but he
Mm.
still had a lot of these like nagging injury things going on. They brought in David Montgomery, but it's still like I think a lot of people are looking at it as like with how much Detroit like to run the ball. If you got a guy like Bijan who could be like a game changer at running back, well, then you don't even need to worry about Swift, and Montgomery becomes like a really sweet backup, and you just run the shit out of the ball. Uh, that, in some ways, is appealing to me because I like that smash mouth football. But I also agree with what you're saying is that it really is at this stage of the game for the Lions. That's a luxury pick. We have legitimate needs that we need to address first. And
Exactly.
for me, it's either defensive line or linebacker. Those are the top two in my opinion. And my list somehow has linebacker all the way at the bottom. I don't know. Anzalone and Rodrigo. Um, Anzalone's fast, and he has gotten better almost every year he's been in the league, going back to his time with New Orleans.
Hmm.
But I, I I just can't help but wonder if Anzalone or Rodrigo would start on almost any other team in the NFL. And so
Exactly.
I think we need it. And I like him. But I think we need an upgrade.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't want to put it in an order because my issue with putting it in order is like watching them, like I personally like these players.
Yeah.
So I don't want to I struggled with putting it in order and getting my emotion out of actual analysis of it.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's just go back to our foundation. You want the trenches to be strong. The offensive line is there. The defensive line still needs help.
Hmm.
Hutchinson was a great piece last year. I think you saw some positive progression with some of the guys surrounding him, but we really need another stud on that defensive line. And then I'd go back another layer. Um, Linebacker and cornerback, we need help. Cornerback is a long term thing.
Hmm.
Linebacker,
Yeah.
it's almost like what you were saying with Chicago and that offensive line. It's like, yeah, you could make the case that you give Anzalone and Rodrigo another year to see what kind of development they have in them. But cornerback, that after this year, Cam Sutton's the only guy you got under contract. So you definitely got to get a cornerback. And so, um, yeah, just my take on it.
Another pick that in older mock drafts that didn't have them picking Robinson at number 6, I liked was them picking what's his face, the dude from Georgia, Carter.
Yeah, he's got some off-field stuff, but man, some guys are comparing him to freaking Aaron Donald, man.
Yeah, he has some off-field stuff, but everything I read with them mocking Carter to the Lions was the culture that Dan Campbell has instilled in Detroit should correct the off-field stuff.
I mean, if you believe that, yeah, because Jalen Carter was the number one prospect on almost every board up until the off-field stuff started coming into play.
Yeah.
All right, you good on Detroit now?
I'm good on Detroit. Well, I'll never be good on Detroit, but
for this exercise,
I'm good.
You'll be good when they win that Super Bowl, buddy.
All right, so then we're on to the Green Bay Packers. Oh,
yes.
Back to Detroit. Every other thing I'm seeing, they're opening as the odds-on favorite to win the North. They're opening to win. Their over/under currently in Vegas is like 10 games. It's like, oh my God, I don't want these expectations on them.
No, It's better to be the underdog.
Now I'm done with Detroit. Okay, this is the fucked up thing about every list I see on Green Bay. Every indication is Aaron Rodgers is being traded off of Green Bay. Yep. Not a single list I saw for needs for Green Bay listed quarterback.
Yeah, the assumption is that you gotta go with Jordan Love at least for this year.
You've already seen what Jordan Love can do. He can't do it.
I don't know.
Dan Orlovsky is a better quarterback than Jordan Love.
I think they made that bed, and now they got to lay in it for at least 1 year, James.
I agree with you, but I would put their number one priority with losing Rodgers at quarterback.
Sure. Yeah, keep swinging until you get it right.
They're not going to do that because they have Jordan Love.
Yep.
Okay. Outside of that, wide receiver, tight end. I might flip those. I might go tight end, wide receiver. Then edge, safety, offensive line, offensive tackle to be specific, defensive line, and corner back for them. They've never drafted a wide receiver in the first round since I can remember.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. I think I would put wide receiver over tight end if it weren't for the fact that Jordan Love is going to need that safety blanket tight end.
I would say, hey, he's been in the league a couple of years now. I would go for a wide receiver, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. The rookie quarterbacks or the young quarterbacks, they love their tight ends, and so, if Jordan Love is still at that rookie level, then yeah, a tight end would probably be better than a wide receiver.
Jordan Love is still at the high school level. The rookie level, shit.
No, I know, and hey, they were saying they couldn't pass on him because they thought he was the next Patrick Mahomes. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So my list was a little different. My list had safety as the top need, and I kind of like that in some regards because I think their defense is on the right track, and if you could plug in a solid safety, you can say, hey, we can at least maybe stay in some games based on our defense. Offensively, I think, yeah, my list has tight end, then wide receiver. But like I was saying, I would probably flip those. And then after that, I like what you're saying, fill in some offensive line stuff there. And then you could go to any level on defense just for depth, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last but not least, well, actually, last and least, Minnesota. I want to check something because I forgot to look something up with them.
Okay.
Because I know they just traded or just got rid of Thielen,
Yep.
but I mean they have Jefferson, and I wanted to see who their. I forgot to check who their other receivers were after getting rid of Thielen, but I thought they Osborne and Jalen Rager.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've seen a
So
lot of mocks with these guys going after a wide receiver.
yeah, so for Minnesota, I think their number one priority is cornerback.
Yep. I'm good with that. I mean, they did
Uh,
bring in Byron Murphy, but they need more than just one guy.
yeah, they brought in Byron Murphy. They lost Patrick Peterson. It's a big jump down, in my opinion.
I don't know, man. See, I thought Byron Murphy at this stage of the career is better than Peterson. I thought Peterson was hard in decline, although last year was a good year for him. The year before I thought was not good at all. And so, um, I don't know. It's tough. But yeah, keep going, man. Sorry.
Who They don't even have Byron Murphy listed as their number one corner back right now on their
Okay.
depth chart. They have Andrew Booth Jr. and
Oh, yeah,
I
they
th-
drafted him last year, right? Dude
yeah,
out of Clemson or whatever.
and a Caleb Evans.
Okay.
So, anyways, then after cornerback, I would say defensive line, defensive tackle. They lost Delvin Tomlinson, which I thought is going to leave a big hole on that defensive line.
Yeah.
Um, they currently have, and they only defensive tackle. They play a 3-4, so it's defensive tackle is big for them, and it's Kiris Tonga is who they currently have at defense on the defensive tackle position. Then
Okay.
after that, I would I would get an edge position. Yeah, they brought in Marcus Davenport, but I
He's
mean,
streaky.
he's streaky. Um, they have um, Daniel Hunter as their weak. They have Davenport, and they have which could be their edge. They also have but they have this is also defensive end, Dean Lowry and Harrison Phillips. So I
Okay.
think they need some help there.
Yeah, I
Then
agree with that. Yeah.
then next for them, I would put safety.
Okay. I'd probably go
Um,
linebacker over safety. Just,
See, I was
Kendricks
debating
is
that.
out,
Like,
but yeah. I mean, I think at some point, you got Harrison Smith is going to either retire or get traded or leave or
yeah,
whatever. So, you can make the argument either way.
yeah, and like they're like linebacker for me was only their only deals with interior linebackers because I consider Daniel Hunter and Marcus Davenport edge guys.
Okay.
So that's Brian Asamoah and Jordan Hicks, who I feel if I remember correctly, they didn't do too
Hicks is
bad.
good.
I know Hicks is good, and I think Asamoah did pretty good last year too.
Okay.
Um, but after safety, I would put linebacker
Gotcha.
for depth. Um, and you're not going to like this last one, but
Punter?
I would
No, no, I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
quarterback.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk about it.
It's yes, Cousins. Yes, he's accurate. At some point,
You got to pull the plug if you're
you
not
got to
winning.
pull the plug if you're not winning. If you're not getting to where you need to go.
Yeah. No, I
And
hear you.
and I'm just kind of putting it out there. Like maybe you can find a gem later that ends up being like a Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And but I'm not saying, oh, you got to replace Cousins. No, I'm saying if you find the right person that that beats out Cousins for the job, yes.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
I would not go after it this year in the first round because he's gonna he's you're not gonna be as lucky as you were last year until you fix a lot of things. So
Yeah. No, I
but
agree.
that's where I would go with Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm good with that. It was a fluky year for them. I agree. The defensive tackle positions, that's a big thing to fill. Everything I'm hearing is that they're looking offense. They've got an
Mhm.
offensive minded head coach, and they just want to win with offense. Um, that's fine, but come playoff time, you got to have defense, and
Yes.
so I'd be looking at the defensive side of the ball. Um, no, and yeah, Cousins. Hey, man, I get it. And I think Cousins can still have a very long career and be a starter. It just might be one of these things where he now goes into, I'm a bridge starter 1, 2 years on a team, and then I keep moving. But I could see him playing into his late 30s or early 40s because he's that kind of a quarterback. He's just not, unless he gets put on an all-star team, he's probably not a Super Bowl winning quarterback, unfortunately.
Hmm. Unfortunately.
Okay. I'm not going to get too bummed about it. All right. Well, hey, any last thoughts on our pre-draft team needs there, James?
I don't think so. I think that's about all I had.
Okay. Well, let's do our question of the week. And this one, I told you I wanted to talk about these players demanding trades, So you got Devin White, Buda Baker, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. I don't know. And that's just for this year. This is something that happens more and more every year now. And part of it's a social media thing. It's very easy for them to broadcast to the world. Sometimes they do it just wanting to get a better contract. Sometimes they do it because they really want out. Sometimes they do it because they want the team to give them more power, like Aaron Rodgers wanted them to bring in players all these years, and so he always kind of teased them with the idea of leaving and whatever. My question is, do you think there's a problem with this that players can demand trades like this? And I don't know how you would stop them unless you put something in the CBA, but I guess the way I'm looking at it is that to me it's problematic because these guys want these long-term contracts. They want these big money deals. Well, the flip side of that is, okay, well, now you got to live up to it. You signed it. You signed on the dotted line. You got to live up to that contract. And, just because things get tough or they change doesn't mean you can just bitch and moan and get out of there. You got to man up and, live up to that expectation, live up to that commitment. And I don't know. I think the commitment part of it is the problem I have is that it's almost like there's just people don't have any commitment. We're all just going to hoard ourselves out to get the best deal we can possibly get. And our word means nothing anymore. It's just as soon as the going gets tough, we're going to look for the exit. And I don't know. I'm not into that shit, man. It bothers me. What do you think?
Why the fuck does it matter if the player wants out? These contracts aren't guaranteed. You have a down year, the team could say, "Oh, well,
But there
we're
are a
cutting
lot
you.
of guaranteed things, man.
We're not gonna not gonna pay you for next year. We don't have to pay you. We're just gonna cut you. If it's not guaranteed, if it's guaranteed, yes. If you do get that all fully guaranteed deal, multi-year fully guaranteed deal, then I would agree with you. But the team still could say "fuck you" and get out of here, but they would have to pay
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
But with how the high majority of these NFL contracts are, they're guaranteed for 2, 3 years, and
yeah.
after 2 years, if nothing's guaranteed. What's the problem with a guy saying I want to trade? I want to trade to a team that actually wants me. Like,
So then my opinion is it should be behind closed doors. It should be I'm going to
I
work with
agree
my
with you there.
team. I'm going to
I
work with my
agree with
team
you
in a
there.
professional manner. I'm not going to go and blast them and drag them through the mud on social media. That's part of the problem I have. You know, if you
Right,
did
but
it,
a lot of the stuff with like the demanding trades and stuff, it's like it's like rumors, and then the team confirmed that yeah, he did say he wanted to trade.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not these players going out there. Not all of them. Some of them, yes.
Yeah, not all of them. Good
Not
point.
all of
Not
them.
all of them.
Not all of them. They're trying to do it behind closed doors. Somebody gets wind of it, leaks it to the press, then it comes out in the open.
Sure.
And I think that's the thing. And like you mentioned Lamar and Lamar wanting a trade. Lamar's not under contract.
Well, there's the franchise tag.
There's the franchise tag, but he hasn't signed it.
I know, but that's another issue for me. It's like,
And it's the non-exclusive franchise
yeah,
tag, which allows him to go negotiate with other teams. The
I know,
problem with
I know.
Lamar is a little bit different because he doesn't have an agent, so it's kind of hard for him to negotiate.
But
To
it's
negotiate.
a
But
similar issue for me. If you get franchised, you agreed to be a part of the CBA, by joining in the league. You need to own up and live by those rules and by those tools that are available for teams. Like
right, but I see what you're saying, but he's not. It's not that he's not living up for it. He wants out. He's made it clear he wants out of Baltimore
yeah,
because they're disrespecting him.
yeah,
So he's trying to go to the other teams and negotiate and get a contract.
yeah.
Then give Baltimore the option to match it or lose him for 2 first round picks. Pure and simple. He's working within the rules
Okay, okay.
because they gave him the non-exclusive
Yeah,
franchise tag.
yeah. No, for that part of it, yeah, I'm okay with that part of it.
These
So
other players like Buda Baker. Buda Baker is asking for a trade because he feels like that how things are going in Tampa Bay. This is going to be his last year there, and he wants to go to a team that wants to sign him to an extension.
yeah. Oh, you're
And
talking Devin White.
Devin White, sorry, Buda Baker is a little bit different, but I think the Buda Baker stuff came out by reports,
Yeah,
not actually
it's
Buda
new.
Baker saying
Yeah,
it. So so I
I'm
have
just
no
being too
problem.
sensitive to it.
I have no. Once the owners put their ass on the line and say we're fully guaranteeing every contract, I have no problem with a player saying I want to trade because there's no loyalty from the owners. Why the fuck should the player have loyalty?
I think you sign a contract,
But
I
that goes
don't
on the
know.
owner's side
I
too.
don't
You
know.
sign a contract, you live up to it.
I
On the
don't know.
player side, if the owners aren't going to live up to the contract that the owners signed, then why the fuck should the player have to
Okay.
live up?
No, that's a good point. That's a good point when you put it that way. So, all right, I got you, James. I got you. That's all I had, man. That's all I
Yeah.
had. So, if did you have any last points on that, or are we good?
No, no,
Okay.
but I just going to say the same thing again
I'll
until you
cool
agree
my
with
jets. I'll cool my jets on it. All right. Well, hey, wrapping it up for tonight. Anybody who's still watching, we hope you like the show. Please play Name That Stadium, answer our question of the week, whatever you want to do. If you haven't already, subscribe, like the episode, all that stuff helps us out. And we do it every week. So check us out again. Next week, we're going to do our first round mock draft for the upcoming NFL draft. That's always a fun one. And like always, James, it was a good time, man. Unless you get
that's
any
come that's coming because isn't the NFL draft like 2 weeks from now?
correct. So yeah, we got to mock it up next week.
Yeah, it's the 27th. So yeah, 2 weeks from now. So it's a pretty
Yeah, and
good
I think we're
timing for
doing
us.
next Wednesday actually. So yeah,
Yeah,
mock
I think
draft
we're
on
doing
Wednesday, and then the
next Wednesday.
following Friday we're gonna do a first round recap, which I
Yes.
guess we'll be doing while the second and third round are getting drafted, unless we want to change our time.
Yeah, I think so. We can always have it on in the background and react to
Yeah,
some shitty picks that are happening.
yeah, that's true. I can always move back over by the TV or do something, put up my other computer or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. All right. Well, hey man, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think I hit all my points.
All right.
This.
Well, let's wrap it up, man. I'll catch you later, bud.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.